Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be tier ranking popular Kindle Unlimited books. Alright guys, so I have over 35 books I'm going to rank on this tier rank. Now all of these books are either contemporary romance or dark romance. I will be doing a separate tier rank for fantasy romance that's featured on Kindle Unlimited. It was just too many books for one video. So that video should be coming out next week. Now if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's get into the tier rank. Alright guys, welcome to the tier rank. So how I broke this down was top tier is perfection. I loved everything about this book. It was perfect. Then we have great, which is, it had a lot of rereadability. I really enjoyed it. Then we had okay, where I liked it while I was reading it, but I probably wouldn't pick it back up. However, I would probably still recommend it to people. Then we have not for me, where I can see how some people would really enjoy this. Personally, I just didn't love it. And then nope, where there's just nothing about this book I enjoyed. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to give a very, very brief, spoiler-free review of each book, or just kind of tell you what the book's about. I've talked about a lot of these books already on my channel, so I'll leave reviews down in the description. All right, so jumping in. First up, we have Credence by Penelope Douglas. This is free on Kindle Unlimited. It is a taboo romance about a girl who ends up moving in with her step-uncle and his two sons, and they get stuck in a cabin together. I love this book. This is probably my favorite Penelope Douglas book. It's what got me into dark romance or taboo romance. It's actually going to go in perfection. I know a lot of people don't love this one. I just think it's so good. I love it. So good. Okay. So next up we have All Roads Lead Here. This is by Mariana Zapata. A lot of Mariana Zapata books are on Kindle Unlimited, which I didn't realize. All Roads Lead Here, very slow burn. It's following a girl that when her mother dies, her mother's been dead a while. Her mother died or went missing during a hike, and she has been in the same relationship for 15 years, and the guy ends up wanting a divorce from her. So she travels back to her hometown where she grew up to do some of the hikes that her mother really loved. And when she gets there, she meets Rhodes, Grumpy Sunshine. I absolutely loved it. Do we have two perfections in a row? Oh, did I like it as... Yeah, honestly, I think it might also go in perfection. I really love this Mariana Zapata book. It's really good. All right, I'm going to change the order of these. Oh my gosh, I put like all the books I really love apparently early on. So the next one is The Confidence of Wildflowers. This is by Micalea Smeltzer, I believe. I just read this duet. Oh my goodness, it's getting a lot of controversy. It is very, there's something that happens towards the end of the book that is very traumatic. It's age gap. It's following a girl that is about to graduate high school. She really doesn't know what she wants to do with her life. And then a guy moves in next door who's in his early 30s. He's a single dad, and she ends up nannying for him. Definitely check trigger warnings before jumping in, but this book made me laugh. It made me cry. It was so good. And then I immediately had to pick up the next one, which is The Resurrection of Wildflowers. I will say I didn't like this one quite as much as The Confidence of Wildflowers. However, it's still really good, and The Confidence of Wildflowers kind of ends on a cliffhanger. So definitely if you read the first, you're going to want to read the second. But both really good, both free on Kindle. Next up, we have Birthday Girl. So I actually just filmed an age gap romance recommendations video. I don't know if it's going to come out before this or after this, but this is one of my favorite age gaps. So this is going to go with great because I don't love it quite as much as I love Credence, but this is following Pike and Jordan. Jordan is dating this guy Cole, and then he really isn't treating her well, and then one day she goes to the movies and meets this guy Pike who's older, and then we realize that Pike is actually Cole's dad. So it's ex-boyfriend, age gap, dad trope. It has everything. I love this story. It's really, really good. It's really between perfection and great. It skirts that line. It might end up getting moved up. I really did enjoy it. All right, so next up is Punk 57. I didn't love this, and a lot of people, this is their favorite Penelope Douglas book. So this is following two people that are in high school, and I think that's the full reason why I didn't like it. I don't love reading spicy time with high schoolers. I just feel like this book could have been set in college, and it would have been better. So this is actually going to go with not for me, just because I'm never going to repick this book up. I don't know. But it's following two like pen pals that have had this really good pen pal relationship all through high school. And then one day the boy ends up meeting the girl. She doesn't realize it's him, and she's kind of been portraying herself in a different light. So he realizes that she's actually this really popular girl, and it's kind of their dynamic. It was a good story. I just felt like it definitely could have been made in college, and I would have preferred it. All right, next up, another controversial one, Hate by Tate James. I was so excited to read this series. I saw so many people love it. I DNF'd it. It's really going to be between Nope and Not For Me. I think I'm going to put it with Nope. I hated the heroine in this. I just felt like she seemed so tough, and like she was written to be like this really tough girl that's like been through a lot and can kick ass. But as soon as the guys started to like kiss her, she'd melt, and like, I don't know. I didn't like her, and it felt very juvenile, the whole situation. I kept thinking they were in high school. They're supposed to be in college. It didn't work for me. So that's going in Nope. All right, next up, the Flock series, or the Ravenhood series by Kate Stewart. If you have not read this series yet, please do yourself a favor and read it. I can't even go into the synopsis because it would ruin the experience of reading this book. I love this series. This is probably one of my favorite series. I'm going to put Flock is definitely in perfection just because the voice is summer. Honestly, are all three going to go in perfection? They might. Exodus has a different love interest than the first book. Know that going in. A lot of people have issues with it. Please push past and read it because it is so good. So Exodus is one of the saddest books I've read. Oh my goodness. It's for a thriller romance or a suspense romance. This book hurt. And then the finish line, honestly, might actually get bumped down to great. That was probably my least favorite in the entire series, but still absolutely amazing. So if you have not read the Ravenhood series, please, please, please pick it up. It's amazing. I do have a full spoiler-free review. I'll leave linked in the cards and the description. All right, next up, these two were really hyped a little while ago. I haven't heard them talked about recently, but we have Haunting Adeline and Hunting Adeline. So Haunting Adeline is very dark. It is following a woman that moves into her grandmother's like dilapidated house, and she is soon being stalked by this very mysterious stranger who's also a vigilante. But we're following the point of view of the girl and then her stalker. So definitely check trigger warnings. Like I said, very, very dark. However, I actually really enjoyed it. I'm going to put this one with great. I liked this. I think if you're okay with dark romance and you're okay with spice, you're going to love it. Just know what you're getting into going in. Now, Hunting Adeline was a little too dark for me. I did like the story. It was just dealing with some really, really triggering topics. And it's definitely more dark than Haunting Adeline. So I'm going to put Hunting Adeline with okay. I think it's worth a read. It was super, super dark. Next up, we have the Sweetest Obsession, I think, or Sweetest Oblivion. I can't even read it. This is the first, Sweetest Oblivion. This is the first in a Mafia series by Danielle. This was actually my least favorite in the entire series, but it was still really good. It's following Nico, and he's supposed to marry this girl, but then he ends up falling kind of in love with her older sister, and it's a Mafia romance. Really dark, really fun, really enjoyed it. I'm actually going to put this one with okay because the Maddest obsession. Oh my goodness. I love those two characters. This is dealing with a girl, I think her name's Gianna, and she ends up marrying this older gentleman that doesn't treat her really well. And then she just kind of hops from loveless marriages to all of these guys that end up dying pretty soon after she marries them. But she's always really had this bond with an FBI agent who's like a double-crossing FBI agent. He also works for the Mafia. Christian, who has OCD and is also really troubled past. And I love them together. Definitely Grumpy Sunshine. And it's really, really good. That is going to go in great. Really enjoyed it. And I'm also going to throw in The Darkest Temptation, which is actually my favorite in the series. Really, really dark. Captor-captive trope. We are following a girl who ends up going to Russia to find out more about her father and ends up being captured by the head of the Russian Mafia. His name's Ronan. I think her name's Mila. But this was my favorite. This is also going to go with great. I love this. I love Captor-captive. One of my favorite tropes. All right, moving on. We have Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover. I believe this is her newest work. I did really enjoy this. It's following this mother who loses custody of her daughter when she goes to jail. I think she's actually pregnant in jail, so she's never really known her daughter. And when she gets out of jail, she wants to be in her daughter's life. However, the people that are raising her daughter want nothing to do with her. So she ends up meeting this guy who lives across the street, and he kind of helps her. I liked this. This is by far not one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books. I'm going to put this with okay. I did enjoy it. It was just, out of everything I've read by Colleen Hoover, this one doesn't really stand out. All right, next up we have From Lukov with Love. So I both loved and hated this. I love the story. I loved Ivan Lukov. I think he's amazing. I hated the main character, as a lot of people have. So this is following a woman that does figure skating or ice skating, and she's really good, and she's been doing it with partners. However, her partner ends up splitting with her, and she has to do singles, which she's not really good at. So her best friend's older brother, Ivan, is a very well-renowned figure skater, and he asks to be her partner, and they just don't get along right away. But eventually, they come to form this relationship. I really enjoyed this. I hated the main character. She's just so obnoxious and really full of herself and only really cares about herself instead of her family. I don't know. It might just be me. I'm going to put this with okay, just because there are other, similar to Colleen Hoover, there are better Mariana Zapata books that I've read. All right, next up is Sicko. So this is by Emma Jones. Dark romance. Check trigger warnings. I can't even begin to explain the plot to you guys. It's a lot. It's following this girl who ends up kind of forming a relationship with her stepbrother when she's younger, but then her stepbrother magically disappears. And then she ends up growing up and being involved in this underground sex ring type thing. But then her brother reappears and he's the head of a motorcycle gang. And it goes from there. Like I said, very dark. You really have to stick with it. However, it's really good. And I'm so happy I continued reading it because I ended up loving it. I'm going to put this with great. All right, The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. This is also a Mariana Zapata book. So this is following a woman who is the assistant for a football player, and she's been his assistant for a really long time, but he's never really taken notice of her, and then one day she quits. However, the football player ends up showing up at her house after she quits and says, hey, I need to marry you. This is marriage of convenience trope, because he's a Canadian citizen and he wants to get his U.S. citizenship. So they end up doing a fake marriage, and then obviously things progress. But I really enjoyed this. I think this is going to go in great. This is one of my favorite Mariana Zapata books. So good. All right. Next up is Scarred and Hooked. So I'm going to start with Hooked, which is a Peter Pan retelling, and we are following James Hook, who is the head of, I think it's a mafia, and he wants to get revenge on Peter, who killed his family. And one day, Wendy, Peter's daughter, ends up walking into his bar, and Hook decides that he's going to use Wendy against her father. And I loved this. Once again, super dark, check trigger warnings, but this was so much fun. This is going to go in great. Easily. I already want to reread this one. But then we have Scarred, which I actually just finished. A lot of people really love it. I enjoyed all of the Lion King references and nods. I think when I was doing my March wrap-up, I talked about Scarred, and I said it's going to pretty much be Hamlet. That's not true. This felt very, very Lion King. I just didn't love the story as much. So this is following our main character, the Scar character, whose brother is made king. However, the main character, I don't know why I cannot think of his name besides saying Scar, and Tristan, his name's Tristan. Tristan has this kind of underground operation where he's trying to take over the throne, and then Sarah ends up being promised to the king. However, she also wants to take over the throne, and they end up partnering up, and it was good. I like the spice. I just wasn't as invested in the story as I was with Hooked. I don't know, something about it. I just preferred Hooked to Scarred. So I'm actually going to put Scarred in okay. It was all right. I'm definitely going to continue with her series. I think she's going to come out with Wretched next. I'm not sure who that is following. However, I'm sure it's going to be fun. All right, another Mariana Zapata book. So we have Culty, which is a sports romance. This is following a girl, her entire life, her and her family have watched this soccer player become very, very famous. They've really idolized him, and it's their family's favorite soccer player. Now, the main character, Sal, ends up becoming a soccer player herself, and then Culty, this famous soccer player, ends up being her coach. And he is super grumpy, once again, grumpy sunshine, and he just does not treat his fans very well. And this was very fun. very, very slow burn. I feel like this was the slowest of the slow burns of all Mariana's Zapata books, which is saying something. I'm going to put this with... all Mariana's Zapata books are great. I'm putting it with great. All right, next up, we have Still Beating. A lot of people are loving this book. Very, very dark. Check trigger warnings. We are following a woman and her sister's fiance when they are captured by a serial killer. And they are held prisoner and they have to engage in some sexual things with each other. And they really have this bond formed from being held by the serial killer. And then the story kind of goes from there. This was really dark for me. I'm going to put this with not for me. However, I think if you are a fan of dark romance, you will probably love this. The story was really good. It was really hard for me to read. So I didn't end up loving it, but I would still recommend picking it up. Then we have The Ritual, which I just finished. I didn't even realize it was on Kindle Unlimited. I actually own the physical copy, but this is following a secret society, and we're following this guy who starts off in his freshman year, and we find out that the secret society pretty much creates hitmen, and you have to work your way up into your senior year, and if you kill these people and you do everything the secret society wants, you get a person. So who is pretty much a woman who vows to like do everything you want in the bedroom. And it goes from there. This was very interesting. I'm going to put this with okay because I felt like it was way longer than it needed to be. I feel like there was like 1 or 2 spicy times too many that I didn't need, but still very fun. If you like dark romance, I would pick it up. All right, next up we have Darling Venom, another one that I bought the physical book, not realizing it was on Kindle Unlimited. So this, also dark, is following a girl who ends up meeting this guy when she's about to commit suicide, and she's going to jump off the top of a building, and this boy is also, and they end up forming this pact where they're not going to do it for 4 years. So they're going to get through high school and see if they really want to do this, and then we jump, I think, like 10 years in the future, and our main character runs into that boy's older brother, and they kind of form a relationship, and this was very depressing. I think I went into this thinking it was going to be a little bit more lighthearted than it was, and that was my fault. But overall, I did end up really enjoying this. I'm going to put this, it's between great and okay, but I think the only reason I'm putting it with okay is because I personally wasn't in the mood for it when I read it. You know what? I'll put it with great. It's going to go in great. It was really good. I had no idea what I was getting into when I picked it up. All right, next up is Ruthless Creatures, which is a mafia romance that a lot of people really enjoy. I did not get into this. So this is following a woman that is about to get married, and then her fiance suddenly disappears. So she is really depressed. And then one day this stranger comes to her house, and they form this like insta-love connection, and we find out like what really happened to her fiance. Honestly, it was a little bit forgettable for me. And I really disliked the way that our main character just fell for this hitman that was actually sent to kill her. I feel like in fantasy romance, you can kind of get away with insta-love because you can say it was mates and it was biological, but it doesn't work with mafia romance. So I didn't like this at all. I'm actually going to put this with nope. I did read the second one. I like the second one a little bit better, but that would still probably go with not for me. I forgot to include it on this list. That one's captor-captive trope, so that's probably why I liked it a little bit more. All right, so next up is 2 books by Gianna Darling that I'm obsessed with. I just discovered this author. She's so good. So this is a mafia romance. We have When Heroes Fall and When Villains Rise. So When Heroes Fall, honestly, it's going in perfection. I loved this main character, Elena. So it's following Elena, who ends up, she's Italian. Her father, I believe, it was in the Irish or Italian mafia, and she's had a horrible upbringing with the mafia. They just really ruined her life, so she wants nothing to do with them. However, her sister is a model, and her sister ends up asking Elena, who's a lawyer, to represent Dante, who is the head of the Italian mob in New York City. And obviously, things progress from there. But Elena, I love Elena. So I'm typically someone who really loves the love interest in mafia romance, and I really don't care about our main character. Complete reverse with this. I loved Elena. She's everything. So that's definitely going in perfection. Then we have When Villains Rise, which is the second book. And oh my goodness, loved it. Not quite as much as the first one. So this is just what happens after the events that take place in When Heroes Fall. So we're following Dante and Elena. I can't get into too much with the plot because it's going to give away spoilers, but I love the way they ended it. I was kind of concerned because some things that go on in the beginning of the book, I was like, I'm not sure I like the direction this is going, but it ended up working out, and I loved it. So highly recommend if you have not read this duet, pick it up. It's probably one of my favorite mafia romance duets. All right, and next up we have Heartphones. So I actually just read this. This is by Colleen Hoover, and this is following our main character who ends up losing her mother in the very beginning of the book. Her mother was a meth addict and overdoses. So our main character ends up traveling to live with her estranged father that she knows nothing about. And then when she gets there, it's at like a beachside community in Texas. She meets the guy living across the street, Samson, and they form this relationship, and a lot of other stuff happens. This is the perfect summer romance read, and oh my gosh, was it emotional. I was really worried when I first jumped into this. It did feel very YA. However, I became so just engrossed in the story, and it's so, so good. So I highly recommend. I'm going to put this with great. Not quite to perfect. I feel like it could have been a little bit longer. I probably would have put it at perfect, but still highly recommend. Really good. All right, so the next three are actually, I just have the first book, but I'm pretty sure the entire series is actually on Kindle Unlimited. So first up is Brutal Prince, which is the first book in the Brutal Birthright series. Overall, this series is amazing. So this is a mafia series, and it's just following all the different, not characters, all of the different members of different mafia heads. So we have the Irish mafia, Italian mafia, Russian mafia, etc. And they all have different tropes. So the first one is enemies to lovers. Second one is capture captive. And it goes from there. But I really enjoy the way Sophie Lark writes mafia. So I'm going to put this with great, another one. The entire series is really good. Personally, the second book in the series is my favorite, but they're all really, really good. And if you finish the Brutal Birthright series, this series is currently gaining a lot of popularity. It is the Kingmaker series, and the first book is The Heir. I've only read the first two books. I've really enjoyed them. A lot of people say you can read the Kingmaker series without reading the Brutal Birthright series. You can, but I feel like there's so many Easter eggs in the Kingmaker series that relate to the Brutal Birthright series. I would really read them in order. But I'm going to put this also, the two books I read were great, so I'm going to stick it with great. Then we have The Fallen Men MC series by Gianna Darling. So I have a full review of this. A spoiler-free review I'll leave in the cards and in the description. I am obsessed with this series. It's so good. It's a motorcycle series following all of the different members of this motorcycle club and the women that they end up forming relationships with. The first one is student teacher. Second one is age gap. Third one is like BDSM. Fifth one is my favorite, Inked in Lies. Oh my goodness. Such a good book. Anyway, I think I'm actually going to put this in perfection just because I've never binged an entire series in a week. I love this series. It's really, really good. Definitely check it out if you like dark romance. And also, once again, check trigger warnings. Next up, we have Waking Olivia. So this is actually a very unique story. It is following our main character, who is Olivia. She has a track scholarship, and unfortunately, she has a certain type of insomnia that is causing her to run miles when she is sleeping. And this is really impacting how well she does at her track meets. So she kind of has a reputation of having this like attitude, which is why her new coach, Will, absolutely can't stand her in the very beginning. But then he kind of realizes that there's something else going on, and it goes from there. While this story was very unique and I really did enjoy it, I don't see myself ever picking it back up. So that is why it is going in okay. But overall, very good. Still a decent read. I would definitely recommend. All right, and this is a new release. So Things We Never Got Over. I ended up reading this entire book in one sitting. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. It is following this girl who ends up leaving her fiance on their wedding day. And after her sister calls her and says, I need help. So this is her twin sister. So she travels to her twin sister's hometown, where she finds out that everyone in this town pretty much hates her sister, and her sister has left her daughter, so our main character's niece, abandoned in a hotel room. So our main character is just trying to raise this girl that she did not know existed, and also deal with all the townsfolk, and then she meets this grumpy millionaire, and it goes from there. This felt very much like a rom-com, but it also had some very serious moments. And I haven't had a book that made me laugh out loud so many times. So I typically don't laugh when I read books. This was really good and very well written. So highly recommend. I'm actually going to put this with great. So definitely if you're in the mood for like a somewhat lighthearted, action-y rom-com, I would read this. All right, so next up is Praise, which is gaining a lot of popularity right now. It's on Kindle Unlimited. So this is following a guy, Emerson, who him and his friends decide to open up this adult club that caters to people that enjoy like certain kinks. And this club is very secretive, so no one judges each other, and it ends up becoming very lucrative and very profitable. So we jump in the future, and our main character, Emerson, is trying to find a sub. He's very into the sub praise kink, and he can't find anyone that really works for him. Then his son's ex-girlfriend ends up showing up at his office, and Emerson mistakes the main character as a sub, and she gets very interested, and it goes from there. So this is a age gap, and it's also ex-boyfriend's dad trope. Very fun, very, very spicy. Definitely know that going in, but overall, I really enjoyed this. I'm actually also going to put this with okay, only because I don't think I'm ever going to reread it. However, I will continue with the series. I think there's going to end up being 4 or 5 books in this series, all doing different kinks. So, should be a good time. And last up, we have Den of Vipers. So, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you already know what this is about. This is reverse harem. I finished this book, and it was a struggle. I'm going to put this with nope. I just feel like there are better reverse harems, and the way the spice was written, some of the stuff was just really not for me. So personally, I was not a fan, but if you want to check it out, it is very long, and it does have a lot of spicy scenes, so you can give it a try. But personally, I did not like it. So those are all of my favorite Kindle Unlimited books. All right, guys, thank you for watching my tier rank. Please let me know down in the comments below if you have any other Kindle Unlimited contemporary or dark romance book recommendations you want to share. I would love to hear them. Now, I said this already. I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.